Hey YouTube. I just wanted to do this video because I have to actually express an opinion on something. Over the last couple of months, actually the last few months, I've been putting, well, a couple of months I would say, since that video talking about reconditioning and redistributing older computers to people that need them, I've been putting together a lot of compacts and a lot of Dells, prepackaged machines, and I'll tell you right now, I used to be a Dell man mostly. You know, when it came to store-bought computers, I've run and worked on a lot of Dells, and the thing I liked about them was they were very easy to repair. They always seemed to perform for what you bought and the clock speed it ran at. You know, the specs on the hardware, they always seem to perform a little above spec, you know, just a little faster than some of the off-the-shelf stuff you could build back then with the same specs, supposedly the same specs. And I really didn't have a very high opinion of compacts back then, because I'm from the old days, back when compacts were like proprietary and a pain in the butt to work on. There was a time when compacts didn't even have a proper CMOS setup in the BIOS. You had to actually have a disk to configure them, you know, all the way up into 486s, Pentiums, Pentium 2s even, and beyond. It was only recently that compacts started doing their onboard configuration and stuff, you know. But here lately I've been getting a lot of circa 2004 to 2008 compact machines, and I've got one on the table right now that I just put back together. Power supply was popped in it, so I put a new power supply in it. I checked the motherboard before I did it, you know, make sure there weren't any blown caps or anything. Came back to life, but this thing, for what it is, I would say the newer compacts, from what I'm seeing, at least in that time, were giving Dell a pretty good run for their money. Like this one over here, I don't know if you can see it. I just put that back together. I just got that back together. It's a Celery, you know, a little Celeron. It's running at 2.88 gigahertz. I'm not sure what revision of Celeron it is. But I just popped a gig of memory, and I had some old sticks laying around. You know, it's got the original hard drive, original CD drive. Whoever owned it, they kept it clean. It looks like when the power supply took a hit, they just set it off, you know, set it off to the side and forgot about it and replaced it. But it surprises me, for a Celeron machine, it runs pretty quick. And it makes me think about some things. I was always theorizing about these things, but I think in the area of processors, we've kind of gotten to this point of diminishing returns, because I'm looking at these older computers as I build them, and they do a lot of things as fast, if not somewhat faster, than my new machines that are in the back. You know, I'm running quad cores or better in the back. You know, and what I think is going on, where the real paradigm shift is going to have to happen for PCs to really advance speed-wise, is not going to be processors. I think it's going to be I/O. What I'm noticing with these older computers and these newer computers is the I/O is where they're suffering. You can only move data in and out of the CPU as fast as your drive's components can operate, you know. And when you're using moving parts, we're still using the same 7200 RPM drives we were using back then. They just hold more, so the transfer rates are suffering very badly. And I've seen some hard drives that can perform pretty quick, you know, and some that are pretty cruddy. But I think what needs to happen in the next few years, and hopefully it will with the price of these components coming down, is computers need to migrate over to solid-state storage. I mean, they're only moving as fast as their moving parts allow them to move. So once that happens, once you get lightning fast I/O, where you can move your data around in the computer pretty quick, and I've seen this on old ones. I got an old dual-core laptop sitting over there. It's an old Core 2 Duo, that when it had a regular hard drive in it, it was just garbage. You couldn't run Vista on it. It sucked. You couldn't run 7 on it. You might as well forget it. I popped an SSD in there. I put a 128 gigabyte SSD in that thing. And the difference was night and day. Suddenly that became a very fast machine. So I think what's happened is we've reached the area of diminishing returns as far as processors until we can get the problem, the bottleneck with I/O licked. I mean, back in the day, say, we had this big battle, 486s and Pentiums, you'll surf the internet that much faster on a Pentium or a Pentium 2. And really, it didn't really make a huge difference. The only difference it really made was in how fast it could process flash. But back in the days of dial-up, and that was the big gimmick, they were trying to get people, to get these high muckety-muck processors. When really they were all surfing with modems. You would still surf at the same 56K you were surfing with on your 486, so what was the point, It didn't run any faster internet-wise, It was all a gimmick, and it still to this day is kind of a gimmick, Your processor is only going to run as fast as you can get the data in and out of it. You may get some number crunching, which is good for games and things, where you're doing a lot of graphics, but for everyday tasks like surfing the net, things like that, you're only as fast as your I/O. And this has proved it. Working on all these computers, I've worked on them over the years, and I've had the impression that that's the case, but looking at these machines perform and seeing, I'm actually impressed with the performance of some of these older machines, Some of these older machines, it's like I said, they're doing things quicker than some of the newer machines I have. And the only thing I can think of that would be is the I/O. The I/O is better in some of these older machines. They may have a slightly better hard drive or, slightly better chipset. I think it's not so much in the processor anymore as it's in the chipsets and the I/O. A good chipset with a good, fast data transport and good hard drive, with fast I/O. And good USB ports. Some of these, like this little Celeron, I don't know it's an Intel USB interface, but this thing will speak to my removable hard drive unbelievably fast. It's actually performing I/O a lot faster than a lot of my higher end machines. And then I've got some machines, like I got a quad core sitting in there. Its USB transfer rate is atrocious. You got this great big processor sitting there, and it can't do its job simply because it's being bottlenecked. So yeah, it's not all in the processor. Definitely not. This is like the 5th computer I've worked on in like 3 months. Compacts, Dells mixed in there, maybe a Gateway. Oh, I hate Gateway computers. Even now I hate them, and I don't like working on them. Gateways are kind of where Compaq was years ago. The proprietary nature of their stuff, these little all-in-ones and these... I looked inside some of these Gateway machines, and it's like they took a laptop motherboard and shoved it in a desktop case and put a lot of laptop hardware in there, molded into the case. It's just, how do you fix that stuff? If that thing breaks, you got to throw it away. So, but anyway, that's just my thoughts on it today. I thought I would talk about it because I'm sitting here, like I said, I'm sitting here in front of this Celeron over here, and I'm just really impressed with it. I wouldn't think a Celeron could perform as good as this thing is running. And I have an old Cedar Mill Celeron that was in an E machine, and that was pretty fast. It was like 3-point-something gigahertz. It was pretty quick. We made a Minecraft server actually out of that one, and it worked real good. My friend's running it on his site, on his place, so I just gave that to him. But yeah, I don't expect much out of these machines, and one of the things is when you don't expect much out of them, you get pleasantly surprised when one does things you never thought it would do that well, So it's not all in the processor. It's not all in the processor. I think what's going on, the machine itself, the components on board, they all need to work well in tandem with each other for a really good machine. You know, you can have this super duper processor, but if your chipset is garbage, it's not going to do you much good, you know. And this is what I'm finding as I put these together. You know, as I refurbish these machines, some of them impress me. Some of them really disgust me. But some of them are impressing the heck out of me. The ones that disgust me, I've got a couple of Dell Optiplexes in there that were a sad disappointment. They're running Pentium 3s, which, yeah, that's an old chip. But I've had Dell machines and other machines that ran Pentium 3s that would far outperform those, you know, with less resources. So it's not all in the chip, you know. Even old machines can perform well. Oh, my service pack is ready. Let me get that. Just click that real quick. And it wants to restart, so we'll let it. But yeah, I just thought I would blab a little bit. You know, and some of my stuff may seem way out there on computers. There's probably people in there way more in the know than me. I know how to take them apart and put them together, load them up. But just in the years that I've been taking things apart and putting them together, you get surprised sometimes, and that was just a surprise, you know. Anyway, y'all have a good one.